بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده والرسول أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. This is, I think we have a technical problem. If you could just give me 1 second, I'm being told. Okay. Sorry. I apologize. It's being sorted by those responsible. This is chapter 2, verse 183, and its translation is, "O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may guard against evil." Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. And there are 2 words in this that I want to have a look at. One is kutiba. Those of you who know Urdu know the word Kitab and Kitabat, meaning book and so on. And yet here, Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali has translated that as prescribed. And if you look in different translations, in Urdu and English, you will see that it is translated as fasting is made a duty for you, and so on and so forth. And the other word I want to look at is Taqwa. And that is translated as so that you fear Allah, you may develop God consciousness, and so on. Now, let's start with the word kutiba. As you know that in Arabic, you start with what are called roots. These are basic three letters, and sometimes on rare occasions you have four letters, and you make words from them. And if there is something new, rather than invent a new word, what you do is you use existing words to describe whatever it is. So, kotiba, its root is kaf, ta, and ba. And what it means is that you take two pieces of leather or skin and you sew them together. For example, the Arabic word katab tussifa'a means that someone stitched together, sewed together skin to make a water carrier. And those of you who've been to hot countries and so on, they would have seen people walking around with something on their back, and there is water in it. So if you're feeling too hot or thirsty or whatever, they'll give you some water. But if we think about the time, at the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, all the protective armor was made in the same way. So what you did was you took some skin or leather, skin of some animal, and maybe you put some wood or something in it, or sometimes it was just leather itself, and you sewed it and made it into a waistcoat, and you wore that when you went into battle as protection against being attacked by arrows and swords and so on, and it provided limited safety in addition to using other shields and so on. So basically, it means creating something that gives you protection. That is what it means. And when we apply it to a book, so how does it apply to a book? Well, you read a book of law, and what does it do? It protects you from doing the wrong thing on the road. You read the highway code, and it tells you that on such roads the speed limit is 70, on such road it's 30, on such road it's 50, etc. So that book protects you. You read a book on medicine, and what does that do? It protects you from catching diseases. These days, coronavirus is all the rage. So we are forever getting information by text messages and emails and so on, and we read them, and they're all about how you protect yourself, social distancing and washing your hands and whatever else, etc. But there is this element of protection. The knowledge you gain, it protects you from harm. In case of the highway code, it protects you from losing your license or being charged by the police and being fined or maybe even sent to jail. In terms of these booklets and instructions that are circulated, they protect you from catching a deadly virus. So what is fasting? It is a protection. It is a protection. And remember that although we talk in terms of a book, as you know, these books that you see behind me and on the side here, etc., the Holy Quran says, "Zalikal kitabu la rayba fi." This book, in it there is no doubt. But at that time, the Holy Quran wasn't in the form of a book as we have it. It was written matter. And so another way to look at it is that you take two things and you bring them together. Like you sewed together two bits of leather or skin or whatever it was to create a protection. So in the same way, you take letters and you join them together and you make words. But yes, you can make words in writing, but you also make words in speech. This is why the Holy Quran is referred to as a Kitab, even when it wasn't written down in the way that we have it now. It was written down on scraps of paper and bits and pieces and so on, whatever they could find, etc. The Holy Prophet said, "Inni Abdullahi ataniyal kitaba." Chapter 19, verse 30. "I'm a servant of Allah and He has given me a book." Now, God didn't send down a book to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, which he carried about with him. That was actually one of the demands of people living in that area. Okay, let's see you get a book from heavens, and it comes down. But by the book, the Holy Prophet meant that he has been given revelation, guidance, orders, commands by God to follow. So you're putting things together for some purpose. And it also means, the reason it's translated this word as prescribed and so on, because it also means God's command. Because God's command also protects you from doing the wrong thing. So you've created something. You've joined together two things to create something, but to what purpose? And the purpose, we are told, so that you may guard against evil. La'allakum tattaqun. The word tattaqun jo hai, its root is wa, qaf, ya. And it's translated variously as fear God, be afraid of Allah, remember Allah, and so on. For example, in chapter 7, verse 35, it says, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى وَأَصْلَحَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Person who believes and fearing Allah, he keeps himself on the straight and narrow, and these people will not fear anything and they will not grieve and so on. Now, Allah is not something to be feared. If you go to your doctor and he does medical tests and so on, and he says, do this, do that, go for a walk at lunchtime, or don't eat too much sugar, or don't take too much stress and so on, If you do it, it's for your own benefit. If you don't do it, then you are the one who is harmed. You don't do it because you're afraid of the doctor. What's he going to do? Come round and hit you on the head? And God says this about religion. It says there's no compulsion in religion. La ikraha fid din. There's no compulsion in religion. Why? Because the right way is clear from the wrong way. And it says to the Holy Prophet Muhammad that you are not their guardian. Your job is to deliver the message. Well, you've done that. That's the end of the story. Now it's between me and them. You don't force people to do A, B, or C, or whatever it is. So that's the one point I want to make about taqwa, that, I don't think it is, it means fear Allah. Its basic meaning is to protect something from harm. Now go back to the last word that we were looking at, which was kataba. Kaf ta ba, the root. So you're making something, you're stitching something to do what? To protect yourself from harmful things. So fasting is something that you knit together and you put around yourself. For what purpose? To prevent harm. You see, what I find interesting is that at one point, people laugh at Muslims. You are so stupid. Why do you keep on doing this? And I had this all the time. I was at school and university. I'd go to the toilet and I'd wash my hands. And you would not believe this, that in those days, the ladies working in a cafeteria didn't used to wash their hands after going to the toilet. And people are saying, why are you always washing your hands? What is wrong with you? Well, ask Mr. Boris Johnson. What's the first instruction? Wash your hands. When you're going into Asda, there are sanitizers there, and they do what? They sanitize, they clean your hands. And that's what I was doing all the time. The point I'm making is that God's commands are eternal. Sometimes it would seem to you as, pointless. The example I gave, why do you keep washing your hands? You go to the loo, you wash your hands. We're going to dinner, you wash your hands. We're going to use knife and fork. You come out from having had a meal, you wash your hands. What is this phobia you have about washing your hands? And it seemed meaningless to people that I wash my hands. But the point is that God doesn't say that, in 1960, this is the law that applies, and in 1970, here's a different law, and in 1980s, here is a different law. He sets down an eternal law that you make your habit, and when problems arise, you're already ready to face them and deal with them. And this is the thing about, people had so much trouble washing hands. Muslims didn't. They wash their hands 5 times a day for prayers. Then before every meal and after every meal. They were washing their hands 20 times a day anyway. So what harm is there when you go into Asda or Tesco or something that, you spray a little, whatever the disinfectant is on your hands. But the point I'm making is you don't know when God's law is going to be useful. It's like people who say to me, why do I have to learn maths? How is it going to be useful to me in life? Why do I have to do French? When is it going to be useful to me in life? But you don't know. It's a skill that you acquire. I did maths at university. Then I went into other professions and so on and so forth and didn't use maths. And then later on, I started giving mathematics tuition at GCSE and A-level. When I was doing maths, I didn't realize that it was going to be useful and come in handy and become another source of income. But it did. And that is the point, that God is giving you skills so that when the need arises, you protect yourself. You learn to read and write. You may not read something from one week to the next. You may not write something from one week to the next. But it is a skill that you have acquired, which is handy. And it is the same with all the skills that God is telling us to develop by praying and here by fasting. So God is saying in this verse, this is my interpretation, not a literal translation, that stitch yourself a protective cover through fasting. And when time comes, it will protect you from harmful things. And by harmful things, it doesn't necessarily mean physical things, but it can mean spiritual things. It can also mean physical things. So that is my interpretation of this verse of the Holy Quran. It is not a literal translation, but I thought I'd share it with you because people keep saying this, do this because you should fear Allah. No, you should do these things not because you fear Allah. You should do these things because they are good for you. Like the example I gave, the doctor says don't eat too much sugar. You give up eating sugar not because you're afraid of the doctor, but you are trying to keep yourself healthy. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun karimun malikun barrufur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma ansur man nasara din Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam waj'alna minhum. Allahumma aqsul man khazala din Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa la taj'alna minhum. Ibadallah rahmukumullah. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i zil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'izukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Uzkurullaha yazkurkum wadhkuruhu yastajib lakum wa la zikrullahi akbar. Wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un. Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, qad qamatis salat, qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Are we saying namaz in janaza?
Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Sorry?
Are we saying namaz in janaza?
Yes, I forgot to announce that we are saying namaz janaza ghaibana for two people. One is Harun Sahib, who was the caretaker of our mosque at Dar Salam in Lahore, and the other, Mr. Izaz Ilahi Malik, who was the vice president of the Central Anjuman. They both passed away last week. So, just to remind you that namaz janaza has 4 takbeers, and there is no bowing or prostration. After the first takbeer, you say as you would normal namaz, then there's second takbeer, after which you recite Allahumma salli, then there's third takbeer where you pray for the deceased, and after the fourth takbeer, that is it. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining us for our Friday service. Our next broadcast is going to be on Sunday at 2 p.m. First in Urdu and at 2:30 p.m. in English. Until then, with a prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep everyone safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.